This is your first trip out to Montana?
Hard to believe, but yeah, it's like my kind of place, right? Especially with this weather that we're in.
Yeah. Well, first of all, man, I'm beyond excited to have you part of the MeatEater team. I'm pumped about duck camp dinners. I want to get down there and actually like see y'all's duck camp, man. It feels like it's like a whole separate world.
Well, you'll get that opportunity. I'm excited to bring a little bit of our duck camp here to Montana. That's where all these ducks that we're going to be cooking are from, and right around that area. Some are from a little further west in the rice fields, which are just going to go great with my duck dirty rice, but some are actually ones that we hunted during duck camp dinner season 1. So it's kind of fun to bring it back here and make it full circle.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun, man. I'm excited today to get a chance to cook with you. I want to do a couple rice dishes, because I think that if we're both cooking with rice and we're both cooking with ducks, I bet we can find this sort of missing link in where these food cultures, where they just kind of mesh up with each other. So we'll tool on back here and we'll get to work, man.
Right on. Yeah. Well, what we do know is that we won't go hungry tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I think if the two of us are around, nobody's going hungry. So I know it doesn't happen very often. We don't, like as chefs, we don't always get to like cook with other chefs. But I mean, for me, getting a chance to see somebody make something, an authority in it, if you will. I'm gonna call you that today. Hopefully you're comfortable with that.
I appreciate that.
You're an authority, at least in my eyes, in Cajun cooking. And since we're talking about like the idea that there's these rice dishes and duck dishes that kind of look the same in different parts of the world, what do you think you want to make?
Well, rice is life in Louisiana, and so I'm thinking about this duck dirty rice. It's a great way to utilize the whole bird. I have these teal duck, I have regular celery, I have onions, I have garlic, I have some black peppercorns and bay leaf, and that's basically how we're gonna build that stock. Waterfowl has a really unique ingredient without roasting it to get a really robust brown stock, and that's what's gonna give a lot of color to our dirty rice. They've been thawed out from last season. They've been patted down, they've been rinsed off, and they're ready to go. If you don't mind helping me out here, we're gonna cut that guy in half. We're gonna just dice up some onions. Now, like, obviously, depends if you're gonna make a stock from like canvasbacks, you're talking about 3 or 4 hours of simmering time because of the size of the bird. But these teal, an hour, 2 hours. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
I just really like to cut these kind of vegetables a little smaller.
And are you good with this just in half, like the paper and everything,
just right in half, yeah. We're gonna strain all that off anyway.
Okay, cool. Just chucking them in here.
And another reason why I love this dish is because so many times you hear waterfowlers say, you gotta cook ducks to mid-rare medium. And although that's true in a lot of ways, this kind of breaks those rules because you're not just overcooking them, you're cooking them until they fall off the bone.
Right.
In Louisiana, we always cook with a lot of bay leaf.
Man,
so I got 4 bay leaf in there. And if you had some peppercorns, you can just throw them in. I'm just gonna crack some pepper in that.
Okay, gotcha.
Very simple stock. If you have carrots, go ahead and throw that in there. If you have some leftover thyme or sage that's in the fridge or in the garden that's going bad, throw that in there.
Right.
We're gonna fill this up with water, get it on the stove. One of the other main ingredients with duck dirty rice is the offals, right? The gizzards, the livers, and the hearts. And all we're gonna do is really get them cleaned up, chop them all together, and then put them right back into the pot, because what we're gonna end up doing is frying them up in that pot.
So how chopped up would you normally make one of these?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like a minced thing, like a rough cut sausage.
Okay, got it.
In the spirit of Cajun cooking, it's what you have. A lot of this dish was made because of the folks who came over and kind of started making this dish only had 3 or 4 ducks, and they were feeding a family of 5 or 6. And so they used all the ingredients and really chopped them up and spread that out through rice. When you think about it, these ducks were shot over the same rice that we're gonna be using. So like, not only is rice being used at every meal, but also the ducks are using it to feed on once they migrate as feeding territories.
I'm very excited about this. Like, it's cool to be able to actually see a dish that has some regional history to it. It's cool to find different ways to cook things, because I think that a lot of hunters, whether they be waterfowlers or any sort of hunter, they kind of have their repertoire. Like, they know how to make the handful of dishes that they know how to make. And then everything outside of that is scary. It's so foreign that it's scary, and it's nice to be able to, you know, show folks a couple maybe new perspectives on it.
All right, so yeah, we're good. I'm just gonna combine my gizzards, and then we're just gonna set this aside.
Okay.
We're just about ready to start building our dirty rice. I have some rendered bacon fat here. And don't worry, the crumbled bacon will come back into the picture.
It would hurt my feelings if we weren't able to actually use that.
Yeah, now I would say this is probably a 1/4 cup of bacon fat. This is entirely too much, but I'll probably just coat the bottom of the pan. And what we want to do, we want to get that nice and hot, and we're going to take all these offals and really just fry them up pretty hard. I went to culinary school and I learned a lot during that, but really, the genesis of my cooking happened at these duck camps, fishing camps, hunting camps, where there was a bunch of dull knives.
Yeah.
And like a bunch of weird things in the freezer and a bunch of old seasonings in the cabinet. And I really learned how to make the best out of nothing. Again, that's kind of the same, you know, Cajun spirit, like make the best of what you have here. Our grease is high. Let's kick that back up to high till it's at that smoke part. So we have hearts, liver, and gizzards. We got hot bacon fat. And I'm gonna just get that right into the fat. I'm gonna break it up, give it a stir, and I'm gonna let it come back up.
It already smells amazing.
One of the things I love to do is add my onions first. Because of the water content in bell pepper, it'll really halt or stop the cooking process. High sugar content in this onion. I wanna get a caramelization on there, manipulate those sugars, bring some more boldness out of those onions by caramelizing. So I leave them separately and get a good like kind of roast and caramelization.
That's the thing. A lot of times I think people get it in their head that to make really interesting, unique, bold food, you have to use really interesting, unique, bold ingredients, but that's not necessarily true. Sometimes the most pedestrian of ingredients, when treated the right way, they change. We got our meat or our offal in here doing its thing. We got our peppers, our onions. I sliced up a little bit of garlic. What's the deal with the mushrooms over here?
I happen to like it because I just find it's a great sponge for all that fat that's happening in there. I like to just build like a little Ziploc bag in the freezer of mushroom stems, onion peels, all that stuff, and I'll just make stock with it.
Well, man, it's smelling good. It's gotta be getting pretty close, right? Oh yeah, look at how dark that is.
Yeah, that's where we want it, and it's really frying up really good in that bacon fat. So now it's time for the onions.
Yep.
Shovel those in here. So same kind of thing. We want to get these onions in here. We're gonna stir them right into this hot fat.
And then let this cook down some more too?
Yeah. We have the stock going. That's gonna take a while, but this also needs time to develop. And so it's just, you're just building flavors from that foundation of the fat on up, really developing each ingredient as they go in. This is called popcorn rice. Now it's a long grain rice that's grown in Crowley, Louisiana, and there's a good possibility that you can, all the ducks that we're cooking today, or at least the teal that we're gonna be using, have been shot over rice like this. You know, I really suggest long grain rice when making this dish because it's resilient enough to last and kind of hold its integrity within all these different ingredients and not become mushy, and it kind of cooks really nice and even. So if you could just measure out 3 cups of that rice. For this dish, it's gonna be equal parts. I'm gonna just show you here, I'll pull it, and you can see the brown edges starting to happen around those onions. They become almost completely translucent, and they're developing those sugars around the edges. That's good enough for me. I'm going right with my mushrooms. We have bell peppers, we have bacon, we have rice, stock. I brought extra ducks. Last night, I made a stock.
Oh, excellent.
As you can see, we're all ready to go. Now, the ducks have been cooked in here. Take a look at that fat that's accumulated up top. Just another way that you could have used that fat instead of bacon to start this. All right, I'm gonna go in with the bell peppers here, Kevin. What I do like is cracked pepper in this. As that wilts, this pepper will kind of start mixing with that fat and start to toast. And I like kind of toasting my pepper when I can, adding it to hot fat. Just letting it kind of bloom. Huge misconception about Cajun food is that everything is spicy. And when it comes to crawfish boils and those type of things, typically that you might see some more like spice levels there. But really, like, Cajun cooking is a lot like country cooking. It's just very kind of rustic. It's using everything you can. It's developing those flavors. But A little jalapeno here wouldn't hurt. I love using the whole animal, but I hate having to carve it all off the bone at a raw state. I'd much rather cook it till it's soft and then better just pull that meat right off. And you see, like,
look at the color of that.
That's still cool, and it's just pulling really easily. Look how deep red and maroon that it stays in that. That's gonna really help add to that dirty look. That dirty. But once you know how to make this dish, you can kind of mix and match ingredients, add in, sub out, and then create whole different dishes from that. I wanna just take my knife, as in this kind of, you know, shredded kind of thing, just give it.
Yeah, just so it's more like, so it mixes in a little bit better, easier to eat.
That's right. Everything looks really, really good. And you can see I've developed a lot of color and flavor within just that cooking method. But it took some time, it took some patience. I didn't rush it. This is your time to shine.
Is this my bacon?
Bacon in.
Yes. You're welcome, everybody.
If you can do me a favor, measure out 3 cups of stock.
3 cups of stock, I got you.
Just get it simmering. It's gonna take a little bit. Before I put my rice, very important, right, is just, we gotta get this seasoned. And now remember, I got bacon fat in there, so I need to be conscious of how much salt I'm putting in, but I don't, it's really hard to season this rice dish after the fact. I'm gonna try some of that. I mean, I definitely get some of the bacon and smokiness in that, but I can tell with those 2 cups of rice,
we're still
it's just,
yeah, exactly.
So I've got it to a good simmer here. I'm gonna dump my rice in. I like to even put a little foil on top of the pot, just to make sure I'm secure.
Really sealed?
Yep. Yep. And then this goes for 20 minutes.
Okay.
As low as heat as I can. I've been thinking about what you're gonna cook.
The surprise dish? Okay. While that is cooking, I wanna show you another dish. I wanna show you a rice dish that, in my mind at least, maybe is somehow connected to this. So this is a dish that I learned earlier in my career. I got kind of a wild hair up my ass and moved across the country to Portland, Oregon to help open this restaurant called Clark Lewis. The chef there had cooked in Italy for many years, and in regions of Italy that we just don't see the food here in the US very much.
Not spaghetti and meatballs.
Not spaghetti and meatballs at all.
Lasagna, nothing like that.
No, none of that kind of stuff. In fact, things that look rustic, I guess you would say, but the flavors just blew my mind. And this is a dish that stuck with me, and I just have made it years and years and years now. The dish, by the way, is called, well, I've heard it said both as risotto pilota and then riso alla pilota. And I think riso alla pilota is more accurate.
What does that translate into for somebody like myself who doesn't speak Italian?
So riso rice,
okay,
alla pilota in the style of the pilot, meaning pilot is the word that they would use for miller. This is the rice that they use. It's a short grain, really flat, plump, just kind of funny looking rice grain. This dish is essentially 2 parts that come together at the final product. So you have pot of rice, literally like steamed rice, and then a pan of what's called a pesto or a sausage. And then you marry the 2 together when they're both completely cooked and then serve it. I know you said you don't like deboning raw ducks, but we need to debone some raw ducks. I want the fattest duck, the fattiest duck possible.
Okay.
Whatever has the highest amount of back fat, because we're gonna grind all the fat in as well. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rice situated and set up. So I'm glad you talked about measuring rice, because the traditional version of this dish tells you to pour your broth into a pot and then to make a mountain of rice that protrudes beyond the stock by 3 centimeters. And I can't do that because A, I'm American, so you lost me at centimeters. So what I have found instead is that it is twice as much liquid as it is rice. I start making it a lot of the time with ducks. I use a lot of game birds in general for it. I think it comes out great with pheasant and chukar and rabbits. The key though is that anytime you're using a game bird, I have to supplement some fat. There's just not quite enough. Speaking of which, I know you thought you kept all the bacon for yourself, but I actually...
You five-fingered some from
Yep,
me?
I sort of circumvented you taking all of the bacon and went ahead and stole a little bit of it before we got started. What we're gonna do here is actually run all of this through the grinder, and not just the meat. We're gonna run through some veg and some seasonings and stuff like that, and we're gonna make a really kind of loosely ground sausage. We got our stock up here to a boil. Smell it. We're going with 2 here as well, so.
Okay.
We need to cook most of this liquid out, but what we're not gonna do, unlike a traditional risotto, is we're not gonna work it. We're just gonna let it do its thing and just let it kind of hang out.
Let it percolate through those.
Yeah, at the point when the liquid is almost gone, that's when we have to cut off the heat, wrap the pot, and let it finish steaming. A couple more things real quick. I'm gonna cut up some sage real fast. It doesn't need to be super small.
The fragrance of fall.
Exactly. I am gonna go ahead and throw some black pepper in this though. It's got plenty of salt, and we're gonna add, you'll see this dish gets just a ton of pepper. So the game plan here is that we're gonna take this sausage, chuck it in here, really fry the hell out of it. What we're gonna do is take this right here, just a regular old dish towel. We're actually gonna use this to suck it out. So we're gonna wrap the pot in this dish towel, take it off the heat, and let the rest of that liquid soak into the grains, and then what doesn't is gonna evaporate up into this and get caught in the towel so it stays really, really dry. Let's chuck this sausage in here and let this start getting browned off.
Oh, yeah.
There's about 7 cloves of garlic in this. It really is, that's the primary flavor of the sausage.
Now, do you want to stir this, or you want to just get like good, crusty?
Yeah, exactly. We just want to fry, like kind of like what you did. We want to fry the absolute hell out of this. We're starting to get some color there.
That cat's on.
And the key with this is that what we don't want are big chunks of sausage, kind of like what we did with the livers and hearts and stuff like that. Like, it's got to mix in.
Are there other herbs, kind of garnishes that you like to use?
You know, I will admit that I think the dish is the best with a pretty aggressive amount of coarsely chopped fresh parsley added at just the last minute. And you know what, sometimes when I'm being extra fancy, a little squeeze of lemon juice in there. Not in any way traditional, but it's a nice little add, kind of like your hot sauce, you know, like adds that acidity to kind of wake it up. We're gonna add a couple tablespoons of butter into this bad boy.
Not enough fat, and I'm down with that, bro.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
So we're now to the point where we barely have just a little bit of a raft of liquid on the top of this.
Time for the torchon.
Almost. When you give it a shake here, you see how it still kind of wiggles out though? You have to you give it a shake and it's almost not gonna go anywhere. That's when it's ready.
This is one of those recipes. It's like, how do you write a recipe
I don't know how you write this down. Here we go.
There it is.
You see this? So now it's like it can shake just a little bit. We're gonna set it over it like that. And then we're gonna set that on right there.
And how long? I mean, it's cooked a lot now in this process. How long does it hang out here?
About 20 minutes now.
About 20 minutes. As we get into this point, it's really becoming evident to me that there are some similarities, that there are some lineage within these two dishes.
They're not identical.
No.
But you could see that there's glimpses of it, and that's what food's all about. All right, so I think we should be, we're at about 20 minutes here. So I think this is gonna be just about ready. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Look at that.
It's looking pretty good.
Take all of this.
That's gonna be good.
It's just sausage rice, yeah, you know? How bad could it possibly be, man? All that grease in there too.
I'm gonna go ahead and finish mine up.
Yeah.
I always like to use a lot of green onions, but the whites and the greens in my dishes. I'm gonna dump all those in there to finish it off. Also brings like a nice fresh crunch to this dish. As you know, it's pretty hearty. Good little punch of parsley. Hot sauce. Now I like to use like a vinegary hot sauce, not a spicy hot sauce. Right. Because I don't want it to be extremely spicy. It's just a big fluff of the rice and getting all that folded into each other.
So I'm kind of in the same boat. I added my cheese, I added a bunch of really coarsely chopped parsley, that little bit of nutmeg, and then a nice big glug of extra virgin olive oil as well. And I like to do this with that really big tined fork because you don't want to smash these grains of rice up, you know?
Yeah. folding it in. That's looking pretty darn. The rice just, you underestimate how much seasoning the rice actually wants to pull.
Right.
So.
All right, let me reach over you and grab a pinch of salt for myself here. They're not identical looking, but
I mean, they're pretty darn
But they're
close.
pretty darn close, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they
you
are.
look at them and you're like, yeah, I can see it.
I kind of want to add cheese to my dirty rice from now on. Like cheese and a big copious amount of butter.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
gotta give this a shot.
All right, I'm gonna reach over here. I'm gonna try this as well. This looks good.
Oh my. That cheese working that creaminess into it. God, that is remarkable. And yes, I do. The tail end of the garlic
Right,
and all that.
right.
It's really coming through there.
This is so earthy. Like, it just, the depth of this.
Don't cross swords.
Yeah, exactly. Man, this is so earthy. It's got so much more nuance. Everything I've ever had that's called itself dirty rice was rice with some stuff in it. And this is a completely different dish. You can taste all that time that you spend just cooking down the layers and the layers. Like, this is so much more satiating and satisfying. And it feels like a labor of love, too. It doesn't
Right.
feel like something that's just tossed together.
Yeah, and kind of a different way, your rice here, even though it's full of depth, it's got a freshness to it and a brightness to it that's unlike this one. Not better or worse,
right,
but
right,
unlike,
just different.
You can see
Exactly.
where these things kind of come from.
I'll give you this recipe, you give me that one, we'll go home. And you know what? Let's each put our own personal history on it, our own spin on it. And you make it your way and I'll make that one my way. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing about food is that the minute you share a recipe with someone, it's theirs. It's their dish now.
Yeah,
You know?
I dig it.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it, man. Thank you for coming in here and cooking with me today. This is a lot of fun.
Now we can actually sit down at a table and eat. How
Yeah,
about that?
exactly. This seems like an appropriate portion. So I'm gonna get to work on that.